The Gollum Cave Incident. Jennifer Gilbraith entered Gollum's cave with 4 other friends at 4:30 a.m. Even though she almost developed hypothermia in the same cave previously, she was eager to take her friends, Blake Donner, Scott McDonald, and Ariel Singer, on the underwater path. Her 5th buddy, Joseph Ferguson, remained outside, observing his friends going underwater. The small tunnel was 15 feet in length and slightly wider than a refrigerator door. One rope indicated a path to a hidden room beyond, a hidden cave in which to stand up in 3 feet of air over water. The 4 of them passed through, their hearts pounding as they entered the darkness. The bad news in the room was, though, that stale air that was many years old, combined with crumbling limestone, created a perilous pocket of carbon dioxide gas. With each inhalation, the air lacking in oxygen gradually caused them to feel dazed, but they did not know it. The first to attempt to exit was Jennifer. She dived downward, frantically searching for the exit hole since she was low on air. She never found it. After a few minutes, Ariel also tried to exit, only to find Jennifer's body in the small tunnel. Then came Blake, who found the 2 women in the tunnel. Scott, remaining in the toxic room, was the last to attempt to exit. Joseph waited 1 hour before beginning to search for help. The rescuers found all 4 of his friends in the flooded tunnel, their faces pointing towards a path to exit that would never be found. Concrete now blankets Gollum's cave, burying in memory 4 men between 18 to 28 who perished there in August of 2005. Mossdale Cave Tragedy. 6 men were deep in the Mossdale Caves, crawling in a place called Far Marathon, a 3-football field-long tunnel that was just slightly wider than a computer screen, a tight squeeze that was more often on their stomachs than their feet. Dave Adamson guided his men in this constricted place. Jeff Bureau, Colin Vickers, John Ogden, Bill Frakes, and 17-year-old Michael Ryan. Up on the surface, Dave's fiancée, Morag, was waiting, their wedding just a week or 2 away. The warning was a whisper, a small surge in groundwater, a slight uptick in the flow of the stream. Then the whisper was a roar. Water flooded in faster and faster, and the men knew they must retreat. 3 hours in from the exit, they came to a tough decision. The 2 men in the lead, Jeff and Michael, squeezed back in the tight tunnel as water hurtled towards them. They struggled to push against it, desperately seeking air pockets as the water lapped higher around their shoulders, their chins. Behind them, Dave guided the rest of his men into the same perilous place. John Ogden, in line at the rear, heard his friends' cries of panic. He tried to force himself backwards, wedging his body in a small overhead crack. A desperate move to find air. The rest of his team jammed their faces in the upper reaches of their position, but the water continued to creep higher, flooding every crevice, every crack, every ray of hope for survival. Above the ground, a lake was where Morag discovered the cave entrance. She ran 3 miles to retrieve help, initiating a large rescue effort, but it was in vain. The rescuers arrived in Far Marathon and saw Jeff and Michael's bodies first, their upper bodies propped up against a ridge on the path, struggling to breathe. The rest emerged one after another, except for John Ogden, whose body was wedged in a small place so tightly that it took 2 more days to rescue him. The Mossdale Caves was their burial place, and the small place where they perished was subsequently named the Sanctuary, a means to commemorate the 6 men who ventured deep in, but never saw the sunlight again. The Jacob's Well Diving Tragedy. Richard Patton and Clark McConnell dived into Jacob's Well, despite their instructor's warning of the hidden cave system that already caused fatalities. The transparent Texas water was a siren's call to them, and they dived beyond the safety limit of 25 feet, to areas that few men had explored and even fewer lived to describe. They found their way to the perilous 4th chamber, one that their instructor, Don Dibble, had attempted to close up with cement and metal rods. Richard led the way, removing his air pack to squeeze through the small hole. Something was amiss. After a few seconds, he emerged again, his eyes wide with terror, gasping for air. Clark bit hard on his regulator. The 2 of them began a desperate struggle to survive, sharing one air supply and swapping the regulator between each other. Every inhalation was crucial, every move a careful one, as they struggled to navigate their way to freedom in the black water. They breathed a sigh of relief when they arrived in the 1st chamber, close to freedom. Then they heard a disconcerting note in their tank. It was empty. In the blackness, a ceiling appeared in place of open water. They walked into a fake chimney, a dead end that seemed to promise freedom. Clark took one more inhalation of air in the empty pack and chose to take a gamble. He kicked off the wall in the blackness, kicking for 20 feet in the direction of the large chamber, and shot 75 feet of water in one gulp of air. He burst to the surface, gasping for air, and alive. Richard didn't survive. The next day, his same teacher, Don Dibble, also informed him to stay away from Jacob's well. Was also the one to retrieve his student's body from the imitation chimney in which he perished. The transparent waters of Jacob's well took yet another victim, making more divers dive too deep and never return.